Well, I've got a long list of shit I want to ask you about, and if at any point you need to cut me off, just go ahead and do so. But otherwise, we're gonna roll right into this. Okay.
Gladly.
So, the first thing I want to mention is you went to TwitchCon, right? Did I make that up?
Yeah, I did go to TwitchCon.
Weren't you? You are banned, right, from Twitch, permaban currently?
I'm indefinitely suspended currently. We'll say that.
Okay. Well, so was I don't I some of my Destiny lore I'm foggy on, so you're gonna have to like correct the record. But how long have you been indefinitely suspended?
Probably about 7 months now. I think it started in March.
So this is the first TwitchCon you've been to since then, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Did it at all change the experience for you?
I mean, not too much.
Like any, because again, I've never been. I know very little about it, but I assume it's not just content creators, but you also have like Twitch brass and the.
There's not
powers
really
that be
too
there.
much that like goes on in TwitchCon. I usually go for like hanging out with friends outside, and then like kind of the parties and just like seeing people basically. It's like one of the rare times you get to see a bunch of your kind of like online only friends in real life, and that's a fun experience for me.
Well, I remember, so you and I were trying to connect right before you left, and I remember seeing on Twitter either earlier that day or the day before that Keffals was going to Twitch, and so my question was, because again, I don't know if this happened, but I assumed it would have been all over Twitch if so, or Twitter if so. Did you and Keffals cross paths?
Nope. I think those types of people largely avoid me. She's a cowardly fucking loser that instead decided to go and harass my wife.
Oh, shit. Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, pretty
well,
cringe.
Yeah. Is there footage of this? Is this circulating?
There's no footage because they did it at a party where people weren't able to stream, but
Gotcha. Well, that sucks. I don't know your obviously I don't know much about your wife, but I assume she's got pretty thick skin. She's married to you, so is it like trying to draw blood from a stone?
yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's very irritating on my perspective. I didn't realize this about myself until a while ago. And it's strange because it doesn't... Oh, I just realized. I guess I hadn't thought about this enough. Because I was going to say, it doesn't actually bother me when people attack Nathan, but it really bothers me when people attack Melina. But I understand why now, and it's because people don't usually attack Nathan. They attack my relationship with Nathan. But they attack Melina directly. That actually is really fucking irritating because she has like nothing to do with any of my political stuff. But it's becoming more and more common for people on Twitter to say like, "Oh, Melina is a Nazi. Melina is a horrible person. Melina is blah blah blah." And it's like she doesn't do any of this politics stuff. She's not like associated with this at all. Like, and she's from fucking Sweden. What the fuck are you talking about? It's not like she's coming from like fucking Hungary or Romania. She's not like some Balkan or whatever. Like it's like one of the most progressive countries in the world.
Not one of the countries that would engender rage in a person. It's fucking Sweden.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like she's like Swedish. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like you can't possibly be mad at
Sure.
Swede.
Yeah, it's just like a really annoying attack to see over and over and over again, especially when she has like very little to no like personal engagement with a lot of my political stuff online. It's super fucking annoying to me.
Well, I imagine one of the differences, I mean, as ominous or as sobering as this might be, is the fact that Melina, as a public figure, there's the opportunity, even if it's not justified, but there's an opportunity for people who don't like you to engage with her and like vicariously attack you through her.
And
whereas with your son, that's not the case. But it makes you wonder, if your son ever stepped into public life as he got older, would he experience the same thing?
Probably. If he was like 18 or 16 or something and he would have started to do online content, I bet people would. Yeah, you're probably a rapist like your dad, or like you're a racist or transphobe like your dad, et cetera, et cetera. They probably would,
So as awful as this is to think about, but that fierce protectiveness or that triggering that it gave in you that somebody harassed Melina, that very well might happen one day potentially. I mean, because the opportunity might be there. I hope that's not the case, but
yeah, I don't actually know. I don't actually know what the solution is to that. I don't know. One of the things I figured out is that like the goal of me is I have to build myself up enough that I can endure like really crazy attacks and not let it like compromise my emotional state. So being able to ignore people on lefty Twitter, being able to control my fan base and not like actually hate raid or try to destroy people's lives literally is incredibly tempting for the majority of my like past like 4 years. It's been like really hard not to like just ruin somebody. But I can do that. I've gotten really good at it. I've got better and every single month, every single year. I'm getting better and better at it. But I don't know how but I don't know how I would feel for the people around me. It's like very strange. And a lot of these like insane, like fascist progressive types on Twitter now have realized that like that's the good avenue to go for attack now. That if they can't get me deplatformed, well, it's time to start attacking all my friends or the friends of my friends or my wife or my kid, which they all do this and they all support each other doing this. So I don't know what the correct answer is to their, like when Batman's Rachel is getting killed over and over again by the Joker. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do in that circumstance. I have no idea. Oh, I guess Batman's thing was he committed suicide at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, so who knows?
Well, he faked it, right?
Well, no, Batman is dead. So he suicided the Batman thing so that people would stop going after
but
people.
you know what? Not to get all philosophical.
Yeah,
on you,
sure.
but what is Batman? What is Batman? I mean, what's the definition of Batman? Can you provide a concrete definition?
Yeah, true. Well, yeah, there's a whole other thing of like, well, Batman is anybody that wears masks. But I'm just saying, like, that was the way that he's able to avoid like the people around him getting fucked, was that he had to retire the Batman. That was the whole point of the relationship between him and Rachel, was him saying that like I want to be done with Batman, and once I'm done with Batman, we can be together. And Rachel's like, you're never going to be done with Batman, and I can't be with you while you're fighting the Joker and everybody on Twitter. It's too much for my social medias to handle, so I'm just going to go and be with Harvey Dent, a guy that like doesn't use social media. Loser. But, yeah.
And that guy did not work out. It did not turn out well for either of them in that respect.
True.
Especially Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. I mean, as somebody who is a fan of yours, it's true that we do hold you to higher standards than we do people who are not in the public eye. So I can't imagine, and I've said this to you before in previous conversations. That's why again, as somebody who is a lefty, as someone who wants to see you constantly advocate for certainly democratic principles, but also lefty principles, it's true that I don't want you to fall prey to the frustrations, the very real frustrations I have to imagine as somebody that you feel, even though you're like well known for like being like, I don't want to say closed off, but being very stoic, but you obviously have to feel this shit. But yeah, you are held to a higher standard. We don't want you to snap Batman and go ape shit or turn, become the Joker. So I don't know. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. I hope you don't do that though, because like we've seen, famous progressives or high profile progressives do that, or at least claim that that's part of the reason why they have, swung their sails politically. Dave Rubin has said that. Candace Owens has said that. Tulsi Gabbard, your friend Tulsi Gabbard, who you interviewed, didn't you talk to her like 6 months ago or something like that?
Yeah, not my friend at all, but
I'm fucking with you. I know.
I know.
Friendly conversation. She's left the Democratic Party formally. Did you see that?
Yeah, but I'd never even really considered her part of it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think anybody. Well, certainly Republicans claimed it publicly that, oh, yeah, she's one of those reasonable Democrats. Of course, it was because she was effectively a Republican.
Yeah.
She didn't say that she was joining the Republican Party, I don't think. She just said she was leaving. She gave her reasons why, and called on other fair-minded, independent Democrats to do the same. Do you think that she will basically like endorse the Republican Party, become a Republican pundit, or do you think she'll
no?
play
So
with the
again,
American
it's this difficulty for normal Americans because our level of like political literacy as Americans is quite low. It's again, we still see this divide between like Republicans and Democrats, but I think it truly is a divide between populists and non-populists. So Tulsi Gabbard will come out and support whatever populist candidates there are. So somebody like Donald Trump, she would absolutely support, but she won't support like neoconservatives. So like if like a standard Republican came out that was like big business or whatever, I don't even know if those exist anymore. She wouldn't support somebody like that.
They seem to be few and far between. They're definitely embracing the MAGA strain of right-wing populism.
Yeah.
Especially now that they feel that the corporate sales have turned against them. I mean, you see, Governor DeSantis is on. Well, I don't know if it's an ongoing feud with Disney anymore because it's not. It's not in the press, but he's trying to revoke their special tax status in Florida over their opposition to the "Don't Say Gay" bill. So you don't see and hear that. As a matter of fact, they kind of lean into progressive talking points about how we need to crack down on monopolies and bring up antitrust and break the back of big businesses. Even Mitch McConnell said something to that effect about that the "Don't Say Gay" bill, that companies should stay out of politics, which is kind of funny because he loves fundraising from these businesses.
Yeah.
But yeah,
companies should stand and follow. That's a good one. Yeah.
Say what?
like companies should stay out of politics? Does that mean McConnell wants like
Oh,
Citizens
yeah.
United reversed? Is that what you mean, McConnell? Like, obviously that's a stupid fucking thing for him to say. Right, yeah.
Right. And I even the most the most charitable interpretation, which I've heard some right wingers offer, they say, okay, well look, McConnell didn't mean that they can't exercise their right to free speech in terms of giving money. They of course have the right to do that. But he's saying because these companies, these CEOs, the C-suite of Disney or whoever, because they're not career politicians, they're not policy experts, they should hesitate to offer a public opinion about these complex issues. And it's just like, but would you feel that way if they said something that you liked? Like, would the standard apply?
It would be completely opposite, right?
No, they're like, yeah, they're exercising all manner of free speech, not only in terms of their checkbook, but also their advocacy.
It's like how Republicans for so long would say like, oh, who cares about what does Ja Rule think? I know that's a Dave Chappelle kind like, oh yeah, you guys are obsessed with like all of these fucking celebrity opinions about everything, opinions. But conservatives loved it's a old name. I don't know if anybody remembers him, but do you remember Ted Nugent?
Oh yeah, dude, I love classic rock. So I've got Journey and Def Leppard back here. Love Ted Nugent.
Oh yeah, so conservatives loved when he spoke about things, and Donald Trump is a fucking reality TV star. Okay, he is very much a TV entertainment figure. Republicans fucking love him. So yeah,
or Ye or Kanye or whatever.
Yeah, they love him now too. Yeah.
Dude, so I have not followed too closely here lately. I saw that a picture went viral of him wearing a White Lives Matter T-shirt, and there was somebody to his left. I heard it was Candace Owens. Do you know if that's
I believe
true?
it was Candace Owens, yes.
Interesting. Are they like a thing, or?
No shot.
Okay.
She would have.
Well, she's married. She's married, I think. Well, not that matters. We see with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Miss, Christo-fascist, that she apparently had an ongoing affair with her CrossFit instructor, and she and her husband are divorcing. But
yeah, I mean, I would break up with Melina for Kanye West. I'm going to be honest here, okay? Just the opportunity.
You would break up with Melina for Kanye West?
Kanye West, yeah, I think she'd understand. It's Kanye West.
He does look good with that beard. Like I've never found him particularly aesthetically pleasing.
It's not that. It's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. He gave us graduation, late registration, high school dropout, college dropout.
I think that Kanye peaked at 808s and Heartbreak. I think that album, so like 2008. I think that was.
You didn't like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy?
See, I'm not really a rap and hip hop guy too. Again, I refer you to Journey.
Okay, but that's just like a human thing. Okay, it's not even like but okay, whatever. I'll let you.
Well, not to get like pedantic here, but what is a human? Like, didn't you just got your ass kicked in that debate trying to determine what a human is? You can't come up with a definition for it.
Listen, there's a lot of Kanye fans out here that unironically think that like fucking like Yeezus is a good album. So don't worry, you're in good company for people that have shitty Kanye West takes. Even among Kanye West fans, so you're good.
I don't even know what Yeezus is.
Good job.
Is that an
they
album?
don't even know what Yeezus is. It's a dog shit fucking album. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, I won't quibble over that. Now, it is interesting. Speaking of Kanye, I think that so much of this, my theory, is motivated over his heartbreak, his ongoing heartbreak. That Kim Kardashian left him or moved on from him and went straight to Pete Davidson. Who, by the way, let's talk about this for a minute since you're on this whole like dating red pill thing.
Oh boy.
Explain Pete Davidson.
I don't know.
Pete Davidson's batting average has been incredible. Like, Kate Beckinsale.
We just went over that. I don't know anything about pop culture, but I don't even know who Pete Davidson is. Is that the guy that is with the Kardashian woman now?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I don't know any of these.
Well, I don't even know. Like, the only references. Do you know what Saturday Night Live is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he is a former now comedian with Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
He did a movie called The King of Staten Island with Bill Burr. It was really good. He's funny. He's like this tall, like he's 6'4", but he looks like he has Crohn's disease. Like he's not a conventionally. I mean, no, I mean it's he actually might. He's not a conventionally attractive man, in my opinion, but he has dated some of the most attractive women in Hollywood. Ariana Grande.
What does somebody look like when they have Crohn's disease? What does that even mean?
Well, I have an uncle who has Crohn's disease, so like he's very, very, very thin, dark skin around his eyes.
Okay.
Kind of hunched a little bit. But my uncle's also like 60 and developed Crohn's disease very early.
Jesus.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, he's not. He's not what you would consider. I think what most people would consider like a conventionally attractive Hollywood guy.
Okay.
He's not Chris Hemsworth or something like that. But anyway, like I mean, he is hilarious. But that's like I don't know. He's exclusively dated. It seems like some of the most widely like women who are widely considered among the most attractive in Hollywood. Yeah, okay. So it's interesting. But yeah, Ye has lost his goddamn mind, and he is now a right-wing darling, and I think he has been for some time. But do you think they'll continue to milk that?
Yeah, of course. It's Kanye West.
Do you think that it's actually working?
It probably feels good to have celebrities on your side for something, I would imagine. So maybe.
Well, I guess when your options are Ted Nugent and Ye,
yeah,
it's kind of slim picking.
Kanye West is pretty cool, yeah. Hip with the kids.
Now it makes me wonder, they should do an album together. That would get my attention real quick, because again, as fucked up as Ted Nugent's opinions are politically, he's an excellent guitarist.
Yeah, I mean, they probably will someday. Who knows? We're not far off that reality.
I think that now, like, you remember the Now That's What I Call series of CDs back in the day? You'd be like, now that's what I call MAGA. And you've got like Kanye and Kid Rock and
Jesus
Ted Nugent.
Christ.
And I'm sure there are others. I'm sure there are other right-wing musicians out there. Because you are apparently conservative now, you could like play like
true. I could have composition challenges on there.
Yes!
Yeah, true.
Yes. Instead of Destiny's Child, it's just Destiny.
Exactly.
I think it'd be beautiful. God. If you do that, I would like to be listed in the like the credits
inspiration
or
whatever.
Like
yeah, I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Okay, so that answers that. I take it that Hassan was there, and you did not interact with Hassan either about
nope,
TwitchCon.
Not at all.
Interesting. Okay. So normally I don't ask about the specific drama stuff, but the reason I am now is it kind of pertains to the Keffals thing. I had some questions about that since your manifesto dropped.
Okay.
We did not get a chance to talk about this, but I was really upset when you pulled one over on us with the Jordan Peterson thing. Let me walk you through what happened. I woke up that morning. I watched a couple episodes of The West Wing. I went to the gym. I came back, and I was surfing the web, and I saw where it's like conversation with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, and I was like, no! Oh shit! I was preparing to like cancel everything and just like I don't know, stay in the office here and just kind of binge it.
Good.
And
I hope you're miserable.
Then you betrayed me.
Yeah.
Do you have any? You feel bad about it at all?
No.
Like
I accomplished exactly what I set out to accomplish. I did what I had to do. It wasn't easy, but I did it.
Now, okay. Help me out here.
Yeah.
If you ever do land a conversation with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, how will you announce it in a way?
I'm probably just going to say huge Vaush manifesto coming out. So people turn in for the Vaush manifesto.
I thought you did do a Vaush manifesto.
I'll say I'm doing another one, and then they'll come in to watch it, and it'll just be Jordan B. Peterson.
Okay, so you'll flip it, basically. Yeah. I got you. Okay, well.
Or I might just have a running meme where I say, like, Jordan B. Peterson interview coming up, and it's another manifesto.
No, I think what it is if you just add the no cap disclaimer to it. I think like that should be sacred. It's like, pinky swear, pinky promise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just do that.
No
That's how I'll know
that
I can trust you.
Okay, I'll think about that. Okay.
You think about that too. Okay. But I do have some Keffals questions, and again, we can rapid fire these if you've already addressed them. But number one. What little I heard that day said that she did propose like a détente between you two. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you seriously consider it? Or were you like, no, fuck this at this point? Okay.
I'm on my character arc right now, so.
Gotcha. So you did not seriously consider it at all. You'd already made your mind up and kind of just filed it away.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Since you published it, have you had any misgivings or regrets? And I'm going to get to the rose wrist thing in a minute.
No, I thought everything actually went way, way, way better than I thought it was going to go. I was prepared for a lot of potentially negative fallout, maybe even retiring. But no, it actually went way better than I thought it would.
So when you say it went way better than you expected, were you confident it would go well and it exceeded expectations, or you thought it would be awful and you were just prepared to fall on the sword anyway?
I had no idea what to think. The problem was that a lot of people in my personal life were giving me incredibly negative feedback about it. all the online people some of the online people that I shopped it around to were giving me very negative feedback. Some the real life people that I shopped it around to said, "Oh wow, this is crazy. You should publish this." And then everything else was mixed. It's hard to figure out what was true or not. A lot of people had different perceptions than I did about what the online landscape was at that moment, about how powerful Keffal was or how much influence she had. And it's hard. Usually, like, my greatest asset is that I'm usually good at collecting a lot of information from a lot of people and then putting it together and drawing out what's good and what's bad. Even though I consider myself to be smart, I think that that's a greater asset than to be able to figure out, like, you alone know the answer, even though everyone else is wrong. That's not something I normally try to do because I think you're putting yourself in a really weird spot. But I did kind of do it for this. But I think it turned out better than I expected. I think I had a decent read on everything.
I think that's I mean, that's something I would consider to be wisdom, not even intelligence. So I do agree that that's a more precious trait to have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough. The manifesto thing. I know you've written multiple manifestos. I want to say there was
prolific manifesto writer.
Well, we're going to get to your prolific writing here because I've mentioned this before and I'm going to challenge you to do it again.
Uh-oh.
And I hope that you'll more seriously consider it. But, well, first question about the manifestos. Is there like a specific or a generic set of criteria that people have to meet to be the subject of a Destiny manifesto? Like, is there some sort of
I've only written
test?
like 4 or 5. It's basically
that's
the thing that happens is when I feel like there is a lot of misinformation mounting, then I feel like there's some clarity needed. That's typically when I feel like I need to step in and interject. So like with the quote unquote N-word manifesto, that really had nothing to do with the N-word, but like that had to do with all of the misinformation that Hassan and other bad actors were spreading around a conversation I had, and I felt like I needed to like leave a record of what happened. With Vaush, him lying about me constantly and making stuff up, I felt like I needed to step in and say something. And then with Keffals, like the mainstream media and then everybody else on Twitter shopping a bad narrative around her was something that I felt like needed somebody to step in and provide clarity.
So the only ones I'm familiar, I mean, I have heard reference to Destiny manifestos, but the only ones with which I am personally familiar are obviously the Keffals one and the Vaush one. Mm-hmm. So I was always under the impression that your manifestos, however many there were I shouldn't say targeted, but were about specific people.
Not always.
Are you saying that's, okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's about specific events.
Yeah.
And then other times it's kind of more of a catch-all. Here's, clarifying my grudge with this particular person or this ongoing feud.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The reason I ask is, I'm thinking, so somebody that I always enjoy when you interact with this person, I don't know if you intend to do it again, but I hope you do, is President Sunday. And President Sunday, say what?
He might be too much. Like, he might just be too unhinged. I don't know if that's a person that I can interact with. Yeah.
You just, oil and water the two of you?
If I feel like somebody is like, I hate to use the term bad faith because it gets overused so much, but if I feel like somebody is genuinely like just off their rocker, and there's like no real point in engaging them in a conversation, then I probably try to avoid that person. And President Sunday comes off as like being very, very, very unhinged to me. So
I got like through 10 minutes of a conversation he had with Not So Erudite, and I thought he was entirely too aggressive and combative, and I had to just like check out because it wasn't even a dialogue. It was just he was being condescending and belligerent. But his conversation with Vaush that he had about something about not Cat Black, what the hell, Professor Flowers, I think it was a year ago. Conversations you've had, I thought that they've gone pretty damn well, and I think that you handle him very well.
Yeah,
like the
but the way that he conducts himself on social media is just like unhinged.
Sure. I don't think he's a fan of you. I think that
I don't mind him not being a fan of me. It's him being unhinged.
Sure. Well, I saw it was either a tweet or it was a video response that he did going over your manifesto, and I heard just a snippet or read a snippet, and if I find it, I'll send it to you. But I thought it was interesting where he pointed out that this manifesto that you've written about Keffals, who's done some pretty shitty things to you, no doubt. Will there ever be a time when you write a manifesto about a controversial right-wing figure, so somebody like Fuentes, with whom you at least had at one point some sort of like engagement with? You used to apparently years ago butt heads all the time and argue, and then it became a bit more friendly here recently. But you know, given that you're a virtue ethicist, or you went recently through a virtue ethicist arc, I don't even know where the hell you are with that. We can get to that in a minute. But, you know, Fuentes, as a easy example, was at the January 6th, you know, riot, and was actively trying to foment, you know, something that was attacking a fundamental institution. So I guess what I would say is Nick Fuentes, to me, seems like a greater threat to the institutions you love than somebody like Keffals or somebody like Vaush. And yet they merit a manifesto, but he doesn't.
Sure.
And
So what was the
question,
what was the original reason I gave for doing manifestos?
was that you know, you were looking to clarify a particular issue about like between you and that person?
Yep. I don't think
So
much clarity needs to exist for Fuentes. I think most people know that he's like pretty bad, and I think that like almost
Fair
goes
enough.
without saying, right?
Fair enough. And well, then that gets to the general question of your writing. I think you're an excellent writer as far as like research papers are concerned. I loved writing those style of papers when I was in college. Why will you not go to your website and write out policy positions? That way it's like an easy reference tool.
Oh, I need to. I just got fucking there's like a whole thing, actually. I have a whole thing like policies.destiny.gg, I think, or positions.destiny.gg.
Right, and it's like, it's dead.
Yeah,
Where
I
is
know,
it?
because I started working on it a lot. I was writing on it, fleshing a lot, and it got quoted one time by Vice journalists, and they just ripped apart on, like, they said something like, Destiny has his opinions on pet written on his site. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And as soon as I said it, I was like, fuck me, why the fuck am I
Well,
wasting
maybe
my
start
time?
with, like, I don't know, climate change.
Well,
or
I think
something
I have
that.
stuff like
Work
that
your
on there. Like
way
I
up.
like decent stuff on like affirmative action, on like there's some stuff on there, but it's like fuck, like and I started to wonder like, well, if I lay out everything here, are people just gonna like selectively quote this for whatever hit piece bullshit they want to do? Like, does it even matter at that point? Like, it almost feels like it becomes like a Jordan Peterson-esque like, oh, did you read all of his books type of thing, you know? And I don't know, it was frustrating. I probably should go back. I'll go back and I'll work it. I just need to like
I think it's great because not only would I think it'd be obviously a handy reference tool for you since you have these conversations all the time, and therefore easy for you to write since the shit's constantly bouncing in your brain, but I think like so I read more than I watch, and so it's easy if things are like written down and you can kind of skim and control F and go back and reference than trying to timestamp shit and go back, oh my god, 3 hours into this stream, Destiny said this really important thing, reference this particular study, and it's just lost in the, you know, the whirlwind. If you could commit that to paper, writing the way that you do, and cite, like, you have like an eye for scholarship as far as like citing sources and shit, you don't leave like unsubstantiated claims, I think that'd be incredibly beneficial. You know, even for, like, not to sound too selfish, but somebody like me who likes to, you know, go like, shit, okay, well, I remember this was said, so I'm going to go back and refer to this particular study that Destiny quoted, or this particular, you know, bit of information. Like when you were deep in the, I remember you had conversations and debates about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and you were quoting like these very specific foreign policy events that happened in Russia and between Russia and Ukraine that it would just save people so much time, especially since you're so passionate about it. I really think you should go back and do that, and do it soon, because it'd be really cool.
Okay, babe.
Okay, good.
I do need to, but okay.
I do. I do think you do. And you got a Substack now, right?
True.
So, like, that'd be another thing. I mean, like, you could put out articles and shit. I mean, how long does it take you to write this shit out? I assume it's
Keffals'
relatively
manifesto
quick.
was pretty long. It was like a couple weeks we spent working on that. It's just, even if the writing isn't long, it's just all the research. It's like so much shit that I have to read. Like, this is something that I've argued about with like Twitter lefties before, or people that do video essays. It feels like if somebody does like a 10-minute video essay, that's all of the knowledge that they have on a particular topic. If I do a 10-minute video essay on something, it's because I can talk about that topic for hours and hours. Like, I don't just like research a thing and put every single fucking thing I know into a paper. Like, generally, if I'm going to read something, I've got to know a lot of context about all of the surrounding shit too that I also have to like understand. So it's like most of the work that goes into any of those manifestos is going to be like watching all the videos, watching all the clips, reading all the shit, getting all the context, all of that shit. And that's just like, there's no shortcut for that. It's very time consuming.
Fair enough. Do you ever like type this stuff out while you're on stream, like, or is it all offline?
Sometimes I don't know if I've worked on any manifestos on stream. No, I do them offline, because why would I present something that I've been working on all stream? That'd be super boring.
Gotcha. I was just glancing at your chat here. So somebody asked, he's like, dude, this guy doesn't game. He reads more than he watches. What the fuck is he doing here? The shit that I watch is politics stuff. Like I watch C-SPAN all the time, and I listen to it in the background. Pod Save America, Destiny, Vaush, Jon Stewart and stuff like that. So that's my interest. If this were just exclusively about gaming, or if Destiny were just a league streamer or whatnot, I would not be here. But I love the politics shit. Okay, so that answers that. You did speak. I mentioned Pisco earlier, and I mentioned Rob Noor earlier, and you moderated a conversation recently about the investigation of the raid on President Trump versus Hillary Clinton's emails, and that's not the only debate you've moderated. But it makes me wonder: do you enjoy moderating as much as you do debating, or is there no?
Yeah, I enjoy both of them hardcore. Yeah, both are really fun for me. Yeah.
Do you want to do more moderating than what you currently do, or is your plate pretty much full?
No, I'll do it if it's available to me. It just depends on what's going on in my life at that particular point in time.
So, like, the reason I ask is, like, obviously, Dylan no longer does the hippy dippy stuff, and as far as I know, again, I'm not plugged into all this, but there's not been something to step in and fill the void. Have you considered doing that and being?
If I do moderating, it's not going to be like a 10-person death panel. I don't think I can.
Oh no, and I mean, again, selfishly, I wouldn't want that either as a listener, because I prefer more intimate, policy dense conversations than 7v7 free for all shit. It's just too chaotic.
Yeah.
But have you ever considered that?
Doing moderation?
Moderating something like that.
Oh, yeah, I had. So here's a thing that I did a long time ago. I think I have a knack from taking two people with very, very, very different views and try to making them communicate with each other. I think I'm really good at that, at settling disagreements between people. I started a show called Destiny Moderation, where I wanted to moderate people with very, very different views because I thought I had a strength in that. But when I started the show officially, and I got people who signed up for it and wanted to do it, they were all people that were very amicable with each other and ended up not having ultra hardcore disagreements because they were being very polite on my show. And I was like, okay, well, that's not the point of me being here. The point was that this is supposed to be hard. And then I ended up just kind of sitting there in silence the whole time. And there's why am I even here? They can do this on their own. They're doing fine.
Do you think that there's being in this space, is it possible to have a civil conversation, that doesn't tread into blood sports, but also where the disagreements are fundamental and they are obvious? Have you encountered much of that, or it's just not going to happen in this space without becoming some sort of blood sports, invective infused screaming match?
Is it possible to have a conversation without them becoming like that? Is that what you're asking?
In this space, yes. Are streamers and debaters in this space, are they capable of, having a policy-rich, genuine disagreement that is interesting and engaging without becoming a blood sports free-for-all? Or is it just I kind of agree on that? I
have no idea. It's hard to say because it's just everything is so weird. Because Twitch became ideologically super uniform because all the conservatives got banned, so you just had a bunch of people arguing about their perfect form of communism on every fucking panel, which got really cringe. So I don't know what it would look like if you had genuine disagreement on panels, if you could do that. I truly don't even know. It's there's two token conservatives that show up. The Fabian guy is a super libertarian, and then Rob Noor. And then other than that, it seemed like there weren't very many conservatives to go around. Or when they were on shows, it was just 9 progressives all bashing on the conservative.
Gotcha. Okay. I had a couple of questions for you about culture war stuff, which again I typically don't get into.
Sure.
But
Wait,
because it was
before you get into this, can I warm up food real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, hold on one sec. Chat with my chat.
Yep. Okay. Well, since I have you here, now I'm curious. Game of Thrones, favorite characters. Tywin Lannister is my favorite Game of Thrones character. Not Tyrion, not Jaime, not Cersei. Tywin. What do you guys think of Tywin? Is Joe Brandon's destroying America? Joe Brandon is the shit right now. He's been way more successful than I thought he would be. I was really pissed for the last, not the last 8 months, but there was an 8-month stretch there where personally I was really furious because it seemed like Biden was being too conciliatory towards Republicans, leaning into that old establishment. We can work together bipartisanly. Because after the bipartisan infrastructure law, we didn't see really any bipartisanship until the PACT Act, and then the CHIPS Act, and Biden's been on a roll here lately. So Why am I a Vaush fan? I think Vaush is funny. I think he's rhetorically effective, and I love the fact that he has, with respect to politics, a killer instinct in the sense that it's not he doesn't both sides issues. He recognizes that the Republican Party is going for a zero-sum game. They are circumventing norms, and Vaush doesn't believe that we should just try to appeal to their better angels. I like that. I like the fact that he's much more aggressive when he talks about Republicans. It's one of those things I'm trying to, for my small part, to encourage in Destiny, because I think too often people mistake Destiny's kindness or his patience as being an enlightened centrist, and it's really frustrating because I don't think the Republican Party deserves the credit that he often gives them.
Who? Biden?
Republicans. So they asked about Biden, and I gave my answer on Biden. Then they asked why I like Vaush, and I explained why I like Vaush. He basically provides things that you don't, vice versa. Rhetorically effective, funny, and he has a killer instinct. Huh?
Rhetorically effective for who?
In terms of like a beautiful turn of phrase, in terms of who he persuades, I don't know. I don't have any data on that. I don't have any data on.
You just like hearing him dumpster on people, right?
I do. I do. I mean, look, at the end, I think that his partisanship will make it very hard for him to persuade certain people that you would have more access to because you're willing to be more charitable to Republicans. But again, I don't know where that manifests in the end because I don't know. I found that it seems like you look at Biden, for example. So Biden, until recently, was very rhetorically genial towards the Republican Party leadership, not just voters, but the leaders. And I would argue that, he hasn't gotten much from it. He's gotten more than I expected, but it's been like pulling teeth. Like you look at the PACT Act, that was a bipartisan bill that was relatively seamless. It was about expanding health care for soldiers exposed to toxic burn pits, right? It's relatively controversial. And yet, because Democrats were working on a separate reconciliation bill with Joe Manchin, Republicans withheld their support, and it was delayed. I mean, I feel like Biden's grace is not really rewarded at a commensurate level. So I like the fact that even though Vaush can be very civil with people he's having a conversation or debate with, I don't think that he gives the Republican Party credit that they don't deserve. Okay. Sometimes I feel that you do.
Gotcha.
I want you to be more of a dick to Republicans.
I mean, I don't give Republicans any credit. I do give it all to Biden, but I know what you're saying.
Fair enough. So speaking of, I do want to end on the politics note. So let me first ask you about the culture war stuff. You say you watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Have you watched House of the Dragon?
Not yet.
Okay. You haven't watched Rings of Power?
Nope.
Okay. You intend to watch Rings of Power?
I probably will. No, I know I'll watch House of the Dragon, not about Rings of Power. I don't give a fuck about Lord of the Rings shit.
You don't give a fuck about... Dude, I used to be that way, but over time, I've come to appreciate Tolkien's world building. Do you, have any interest in that or any...
Not at
genuine.
All. I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is probably one of the best trilogies of all times. I just don't care much about the world. Not as much as Game of Thrones.
I like the system of magic that Tolkien employs. Like when I was younger, I really preferred more like zap zap and pew pew, lightning bolts and shit like that. And there is a bit of that in Tolkien's work, but I love the fact. So in the Lord of the Rings, and I think it's the Fellowship of the Ring, where they're trying to scale the mountain to get to Mordor, and there's an avalanche that's triggered, and it's Christopher Lee's White Wizard Saruman, and he's chanting towards the mountain, and Gandalf is trying to chant back. And the magic is basically there's a spirit residing within the mountain, and Saruman and Gandalf are essentially competing for an emotional response. The mountain is currently slumbering. Saruman is trying to wake it up. Gandalf is trying to, kind of nurture it back to sleep. I thought that when I was younger, I didn't really have an appreciation for that because I'm like, oh, I want more pew pew, zap zap. Why is he just screaming at a fucking mountain instead of just like zapping it like force lightning. But as I've gotten older, I thought it was pretty cool that it's like there's like like a druid, like a shamanism or a paganism in Tolkien's work where every inanimate object has some sort of spirit or connection. It's why I've come to appreciate the original trilogy Star Wars cosmology as opposed to like the shit you see in the video games where it's like blowing up Star Destroyers and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
yeah. So obviously there's been a lot of backlash about Rings of Power casting and to a lesser extent House of the Dragon casting. And I know you had a really good conversation with Sean and with Lauren Southern about it, and I love that conversation. And it's not talked about as much as it was a month ago. I still see it every now and then, and people complain about it. But it kind of occurred to me that, I mean, I went through all the arguments too I've had with people like, okay, look, it's an adaptation. Look, this is a work of fiction. If your suspension of disbelief can handle talking trees and wizards who are actually angels and Balrogs that should be able to handle a black elf. And of course, people would, then appeal to, okay, it's really not about the suspension of disbelief. It's about the faithfulness to the source material. And then it's like, okay, well, even Peter Jackson's movies, which statistically speaking you probably loved, those took creative liberties during the adaptations as well. So it wasn't a 100% faithful adaptation. So why did you love those and hate this? And then they would say, okay, well, at the end of the day, the characters, these race of characters were conceived a certain way, and this just strains it too far. When you've had these conversations with people, did you ever bring up how like depictions of Jesus Christ, I don't know if Southern and Sean are, I know they're conservative, I don't know if they're religious, but if you look at all like the artistic and cinematic depictions of Jesus, he's a white guy. It's Jim Caviezel, it's Willem Dafoe. Do you think that there might be any sort of success in pointing that out? I tried to appeal to that in videos that I've made on the subject.
Probably not.
I think get a lot of pushback.
The important thing is to figure out what they're actually mad about. And I think what they're actually mad about is like the ultra woke attitude. I think that's the issue. I think that they get more mad than they should, but I understand it, right? Like, I think that if you do world building well, and if you make badass characters well, I think that people would be okay with that. Were you the one that came on who knew about George R.R. Martin or whatever? That's not you, is it?
No.
I didn't even know this, but some guy came on to talk a lot, who does a lot of like Game of Thrones reading and history and all this shit. And I guess he's read like all the books or whatever. Apparently George R.R. Martin is a super fucking massive feminist. It's like a huge part of like the influence of his writing. And he was telling me, and I guess looking at Game of Thrones, like that makes sense, I guess, because there's a lot of really, really, really powerful women in Game of Thrones. But I never got the feeling. Oh, Preston Jacobs was a guy. I never got the feeling though that like Game of Thrones is like a feminist story or feminist propaganda. It was just really well-written female characters all over the world. Now, this isn't fair, but I think if George R.R. Martin was out there talking all the time about his desire to have more feminist characters in his stories, I think that just that perception would make conservatives more like aligned against it, I think. Sorry.
No, I mean, that certainly makes sense, but I guess, would you say that there's, okay, very bluntly speaking, number one, do you think that there's hypocrisy in that? And do you think that
yeah,
means
it's
that
stupid.
At least a level?
I don't know if it's hypocrisy, but it's dumb.
Do you think that there's an unconscious level, at least an unconscious level of racism there? Not if you dislike the show. Not if you dislike the show. Perfectly subjective reasons to dislike the show if you think that it's a terrible adaptation. But if you're raging out over a black elf,
I truly, where my finger is at on Republicans right now, I don't really feel like there's this. I don't feel like there's much racism there anymore. I think that there are other forms of class stuff that they don't like, but I truly believe that where Republicans are now, that if you show them like a hardworking black person, they'll be like, oh, okay, that's chill. Or if you show them like a gay dude that's like takes care of his own shit and he's not trying to, I guess, talk about his gayness too much, they're like, whatever, I can deal with it. I think the Republican Party today has gotten a lot more progressive on racial issues and even LGBT issues than they were like 10 or 20 years ago. There might be like some underlying weirdness that kind of makes me wonder sometimes. Like if we want to get academic, maybe I can show you like kinds of racism that conservatives engage in. But I don't think it's the same kind of even like 15 or 20 years ago. I think for the most part, it's more it's more cultural issues now than like actual.
Now
like,
that
yeah.
now that I would agree with. I don't think it's the same magnitude or same flavor of racism or bigotry that it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But it does. Like when I was making my videos, when I was having these conversations with people on Twitter, people on TikTok and whatnot, when we kept like chasing down the tangents, it just kept coming back to me that it feels like it's got to be a level of bigotry, again, to not to dislike the show, but to have a particular issue with the show because of this character. Arondir, the Black Elf, is not a character in Tolkien's books. It's an original character created. So it's not like you're recasting an iconically white character. It's not Elrond or whatever.
Sure.
And then if you appeal to the adaptation of the source material, then the conversation typically goes, okay, well, did you love Peter Jackson's movies? Oh, love those movies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, here's this wiki page of the various alterations and creative liberties that were taken between Tolkien's movie or
No, yeah.
Jackson's
at the end of the day,
movies.
all the arguments are pretty easy to knock down. And even if you showed them a thing, they wouldn't care. You know that the issue
Right.
they have is like the wokeism. Yeah, for sure.
Right, and it's like, okay, and then you flip it on them, and then you say, okay, well, what about how Jesus, this first century, dark-skinned person in the Middle East, he's constantly depicted by like people like Jim Caviezel and Willem Dafoe and whatnot. Look at any painting or any illustration of Jesus hanging anywhere, and it's probably going to be somebody who looks, like somebody blonde hair, blue-eyed, whatnot. Like there's a clear inconsistency. Do you ever complain about that? Is that something that offends you because it's not scientifically accurate? And the answer is no. They don't give a shit about that. So to me, it seems like no matter how we go, if we follow the dialogue tree, at the end of the day, if you have a particular issue with at least Arondir in the Rings of Power, it seems to me that it can only be motivated by bigotry. Now, if you don't like the character because you think the actor sucks, whatever, but if the skin color of the character pisses
You don't think it can't
off,
just be that they're irritated by like what they perceive as like all the woke like virtue signaling? Because that's how I kind of I almost like even I roll my eyes.
What's there to be? Well, I guess okay, but what's there to be upset about? I guess is my question. Like, yes, that's obviously.
Well, that's
something
like
that
the
they
response
state.
is disproportionate, but like people get really mad about culture war shit. I would say that for a lot of culture war stuff. I guess like I just yeah.
I don't want to. Well, I don't want to do an infinite regression here, but it's like is the reason that they're upset about the culture war shit because some degree of bigotry. Like they wouldn't care if they weren't bigoted.
I mean, I get annoyed by woke stuff, and I don't think I'm bigoted. Like there are things that make me roll my eyes. Like I don't know if it still happens in media today, but it felt like for a while there, like every single TV show is going to have one scene where like a woman and a man have to confront on something, and the woman is like surprisingly powerful and capable, and she's like, "Told you, I'm a woman. Don't underestimate us." It feels like that scene was showing up in every single fucking movie, every single fucking TV show that I ever watched. Like, oh, okay, I get.
Well, no,
Jesus,
so I mean, look, that's perfectly fair, but to me, that's the clumsiness involved. So, like for example, I was not a big fan of the Captain Marvel movie.
Sure.
Didn't like it. I don't think so. It wasn't because Captain Marvel was so powerful because Thor is very powerful or whatnot. It was because within the context of her film, she wasn't really challenged in a meaningful way. You know, she was the best fighter. She had relatively easy control of her powers. You know, you think of Thor. Well, Thor loses fights. He's not all the time. Thor is outwitted. You know, like Thor is.
Yeah, it's shitty writing, but it's the problem is that I think that for people, it's the shitty writing combined with the ultra like perceived wokeism is what pisses people off.
I guess I could understand why people would be upset if the wokeism manifests in bad writing. That I get, because that does happen. And I don't think that simply because a story is woke, that it's inherently good or inherently better than a story that's not woke.
Sure.
There again, for example, the Black Panther movie is not my favorite. I was kind of surprised when I saw, because I love reading like ranked lists and stuff, like just seeing the opinions of other writers. You know, what does Entertainment Weekly think the best Game of Thrones characters are, the best, you know, Marvel movies? And I was always so surprised that the Black Panther was always considered like number one in so many of these lists. I mean, it was a bad movie, but Captain America: The Winter Soldier is my favorite. And so there are probably like 2 or 3 other movies I would put ahead of Black Panther. Now, I appreciate it for its artistic value, the fact it's a blockbuster hit with a predominantly black cast, yada, 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 yada. But that didn't mean that in terms of like the narrative that I had to grade it on a curve. I know some people feel like they probably feel like they need to. But I don't know. I get where you would be upset by things being woke if it results in clumsy or bad writing. But I don't see like where Rings of Power. Like people were pissed about Rings of Power before the show came out. So
No, yeah, I know. It's a thing on both ends where it's like progressives get way too cringe about being ultra woke, and then like conservatives get way too cringe about being like against wokeness. Like there are things that I see and it makes me roll my fucking eyes, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like ultra fucking ass pained about it. Like I don't think it's worth getting that mad over. But I kind of understand what you're saying. It's like, well, if somebody is that mad over it, like, is it an indication of something deeper? I don't know if it necessarily is or isn't. People get mad over dumb shit sometimes.
Yeah, I guess
you know
the
what?
cynical.
You know what is something that the thing that makes me the most uncomfortable right now in the popular discourse is how mad and how invested people are in Pitbull arguments. To me, actually, it seems like one of the weirdly racist things right now. It feels like people are like, yeah. Have you seen
the rapper or the dog?
The dog, like the rabid fucking obsession that people have with the Pitbull shit. Makes me like really wonder. Like I feel like people are way too invested in that. That's real.
What's the meta surrounding pit bulls?
People think that like pit bulls are just these horrible breeds of animals that shouldn't exist and should never be sold to people.
That they're like inherently violent. Yeah. Yeah. My understanding isn't it about how they're raised?
Probably. I think that all the data out right now shows that it's about a wash. I think there was one like big study that was done that shows that any breed can be more dangerous than the other, just whatever. But like obviously pit bulls are really strong, and if they do bad shit, you're gonna know about it. But like even if you wanted pit bulls banned, that's totally fine. But it's like the rabid like fucking obsession with people talking about it is one of those things that I look at it and it's like you seem really invested in this topic, and I don't fully understand why.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it. I have an ex-girlfriend who loved pit bulls and her favorite breed. I've got a sister who owns one. She was not a dog person, but my brother-in-law had a pit bull. They love it. I mean, and they have it around. I've got 3 nieces by her, or 2 nieces and 1 nephew, and they bring the pit bull around all the time. And it's just a very well-behaved, docile dog. So that, yeah, I guess I am familiar with people having like visceral reactions if it's nature versus nurture. As far as like their personal motivation as to why they would give a shit, I guess it would just be because
it could just be because my brain is poisoned from like fighting with alt-righters and shit so much in the past, and like people would use pit bulls as like a proxy for racism. But it just insanely like weird people get about it. It's one of those things that kind of makes me wonder, like, why do you care so fucking much about this topic? Like, are pit bulls really killing like that many people across the Western world right now that this is like the thing that you need to be spamming social media and Reddit about constantly? It seems really fucking weird.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I've had conversations of that particular tangent with a lot of people who, you know, because I do get frustrated, of course, to say this as a lefty who went through a right-wing contrarian arc, so I feel like I see it on both sides, but I remember distinctly where I allowed my frustration at what I considered to be, you know, woke talking points or, you know, woke overreach by Hollywood to distract me from what were tangibly more important issues. I mentioned this to you before, where I was inundated with, you know, conversations about the latest culture war take from AOC or Ilhan Omar or whatnot, and I was ignoring all the shit that Donald Trump was doing as president of the United States, the most powerful man on the planet, many, 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 many times more powerful and important than AOC and Ilhan Omar. But I basically gave him a pass, even though I didn't vote for him, and I hyper fixated on all the shit that they did. And that was actually what kind of snapped me out of it. Like, not saying that you can't get frustrated when, you know, attempts to be woke are super clumsy, or it results in bad writing or bad policy. I mean, I think that's perfectly fair. But to just have like this like visceral reaction to anything you perceive to be woke, and that's the other thing too. In the judgment of a lot of right wingers, I think that anything to them, like the casting of a you know, person of color or whatnot, like anything to them is considered woke. I don't think I could be wrong. I know that there were some articles written about the Rings of Power casting, but I don't recall this entire media blitz. I don't recall seeing commercials and shit or TikToks where they're like, "Hey, listen, this is Rings of Power and it's super." Like, I don't remember that being the selling point of the show, or in the case of House of the Dragon either. So again, it's just it seems to me like the root cause of it has to be some sort of like.
I mean, it's probably the well has been like so fucking poisoned and everything now that people just draw like super negative associations immediately when they see certain things. That'd be my guess.
Do you think? So you mentioned something interesting there about why you care about certain things, like why do you give a shit? And again, that's obviously the thesis that I'm spinning here with culture war takes. But then I have people point out to me like, okay, well, you're not in a position to really lecture about that because how focused are you on things like nuclear Armageddon or AI alignment or even climate change? And I'm like, well, not really. And they're like, exactly. You're concerned about, the Republican Party and Donald Trump upending institutions, overthrowing democracy. And yeah, that might be a bigger deal than culture war takes. But if you're really this utilitarian who's going to be focused on shit that really matters, why aren't you dedicating more of your time proportionately to things that matter more still? Do you think that that's a fair argument to make? Like if somebody says that to you, Destiny, you should care more about, extinction level or existential threats than what you do?
I don't like in reference to like climate change specifically, or
yeah. So like, how dare you lecture somebody on why they give a shit about Pitbulls?
Oh no, I mean like we all focus on tons of different problems. Like proximity is going to be a big thing in time and space to us. The idea that everybody should be focused on the biggest problems facing all of humanity at all points in time is not realistic or normal for human behavior ever, right?
No, I agree, but does that mean that just from a purely logical perspective, and I know that's what you try to be, do you cede any credibility on lecturing people for their misaligned priorities when they can turn around and say that your priorities are not optimally aligned?
No, but I try not to. I try not to attack people on their misaligned priorities.
No, I don't think you do. But you just mentioned like with the Pitbull thing, like you're like, why the fuck do you give a shit about this?
Or no. Let me rephrase that, because if I said that, it came off differently. When I say why the fuck do you give a shit about it, it's not why do you give a shit about it. It's how invested or vitriolic somebody is about it. A really good example is, and I haven't been in, there have been certain, I feel like the type of racial humor on the internet has changed quite a bit over the past several years. In like 2015, 2016, if I was reading like different threads on like the politics board on 4chan and shit, these threads were insanely vitriolic. And it wasn't just that they were using racist humor, it's that they were like racist and insanely crazy fucking hateful. Or it felt that way. There was like a level of vitriol there that was just insane that I feel like isn't as much in any of these places. Now, there's still some places that are really hateful and, of course, blah, 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 but it's like changed a bit. So it's the same thing with the Pitbull thing. If somebody's like, oh yeah, like Pitbulls I think are like, pretty bad, we shouldn't have this breed. Okay, sure, that's fine, that's fair. You can think that. But like when people are like posting about it nonstop, making Reddit threads about it, like bringing up, like I've got 15 studies, blah, 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 it's like, that just seems like a really strange level of investment. And then the discourse around it gets like ultra vitriolic or whatever, and it just feels a little bit weird. That's what I mean, right?
No, and I agree with that too. So it's not that you're to clarify, you're not saying that you can't have an opinion on it. It's just
you can put your effort, focus on a lot of different areas, yeah.
Right, and I agree. I think that that maxim that where your time is where your heart is or whatever. I think that there's obviously a great deal of truth to that. I mean, unless you're addicted, and then there's like a neurochemical element there too. But it's kind of the same thing where I get like subconsciously weirded out when people fixate on topics like race and IQ. There
Sure.
again, like my gut is like, what's your motivation for talking about this all the goddamn time? Like why you say it's not that you're racist, but it feels like that is playing a role, especially when there's other things to focus on.
It's like a libertarian that wants to talk about the age of consent all the time. It feels a little bit weird.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so now the politics stuff, and then I'll let you go. But I've got some questions here. So again, midterms right around the corner. We're talking about a month away.
True.
You said there would be some more content. You still
I'm trying to
still planning on that?
Trying to finish this factory, okay? Once I've got my factory done, yeah, we're ready to go, okay?
Okay. All right. I'm holding you to that. So
Okay.
tomorrow then, I expect 2 videos
Gotcha.
tomorrow.
I'm working on it, okay.
Have you seen Jon Stewart's conversation with the Attorney General of Arkansas? That it's gone viral.
We might have watched part of that. What happened though?
Oh, about so if I remember correctly, Arkansas passed a bill that basically banned gender-affirming care. It was vetoed by Arkansas's governor.
Oh wait,
He was
is it a
Republican.
woman?
It was.
I
Yes,
did
the
watch
Attorney
clips of
General,
this.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So it was there's a temporary stay on this law because the GOP legislature in Arkansas overrode Governor Hutchinson's veto. So it kind of had a clear path, but then the Eighth Circuit Court put a temporary stay on it, and it's going to have a case, I think, sometime this month. And so Stewart was having a conversation about it, and I'm a big Jon Stewart stan. I love The Daily Show when he was. So number one, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of Jon Stewart in general? Are you a fan?
Man, I don't know now, man. It feels like he went a little bit off the deep end. I super love The Daily Show, though. I think he was one of the really important formative figures for a lot of liberals growing up. Seems like his stuff recently has gotten a little bit cringe, but definitely growing up, I love it.
You think Stewart went off the deep end? What?
I don't know. I feel
He
like I've
gets
seen
shit on for not going too far left. Okay, all right.
I feel like I've seen some things on it from that one new show he's got recently that's like a little bit cringe, but I don't know. Maybe I've just.
Oh,
seen
the
back.
problem with.
Yeah,
I bet it was the problem with white people. That episode where he had Andrew Sullivan on.
It might have been. I don't remember, but.
Sorry. As far as that particular conversation with Attorney General Rutledge, what'd you think of it?
I think he did pretty well in that conversation. She looked pretty silly. There was one line of questioning, I think, that went kind of viral or whatever, and it looked it looked really bad for her. Yeah. I
give her credit for. I will say this for sitting there and taking the grilling.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that because Jon Stewart could be a very, 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 very tough interviewer. So if you're willing to sit through it, props to you for at least willing to, endure it. But
he's very incisive, and I mean, like a lot of people have been like touting this as the standard by which actual professional journalists, because he's still a comedian, right? I mean, which isn't to say that you don't have alternate skills, but it's still not his purview. And even the problem with Jon Stewart, the show, is not like an interview based show. In fact, not every episode, as far as I'm aware, has like those sit down interviews with political figures. It happens, but it's not like a mainstay of the show, and yet he's very incisive. He knows how to dissect arguments. Do you think a lot is made of his debate prowess in terms of mainstream figures? Do you think that he's earned his reputation, or do you think it's overrated and his targets are just people who are not equipped for him?
It's hard to say because he did this thing where he does this thing that I think where he hides behind comedy a little bit too much, and I wish he would take a little bit more accountability for what he does.
Chris Wallace made that accusation on him, the ex-Fox News reporter, Chris Wallace, about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where he called him to task. He's like, you malign Fox News, you make fun of Fox News, and then when you're called out on it, you appeal to the fact that, you're a comedian, not a journalist.
And I don't mind him. Like, Stewart's answers were satisfactory in regards to that. In that, like, well, I do a puppet show, or there's what did he say? It was like a puppet show that his crank calls comes on after my show. I can understand that.
That's my lead in,
And I think that the slack that I would cut him was that back then it genuinely did seem like we felt a little bit differently about like edutainment. That wasn't really as much a thing back then, where people would look at like entertaining things to get all of their education. So maybe he wasn't grappling with that concept as much, but it definitely seems to be the case today. I'm an entertainer, right? But a lot of people probably get the majority of their political informant from me, right? So for me
even more after you finish your writing.
Yeah, true. But so for me to just say like, oh, well, I do whatever I want. I have no responsibility whatsoever. I'm just a streamer. Doesn't really make sense because that's not how people engage with my content. And I think a similar criticism could be levied at Stewart, and that's not how people engaged with his content either. They did engage with it as like an informative news source thing, and he should have been more willing to, I think, bite the bullet on that, and own that, and have a responsibility there,
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, because I do agree that Stewart. I don't agree that Stewart should be held to the same sort of journalistic standard. I mean, obviously, if he misreports a fact, he should be fact-checked or whatnot. But to me, it's less of a big deal, at least certainly at the time when he was in The Daily Show. Now, obviously, his role has changed somewhat, because the problem with Jon Stewart is more of an even overtly political show than The Daily Show was.
Yeah, of course.
Because The Daily Show is satirical.
Yeah, The Daily Show is just a comedy show. The problem with Jon Stewart, I think, is like it's like in the same vein of like the John Oliver show, right?
Right,
Yeah.
100%. So I think that the threshold, like he's finally there where I would grade him on the same level as again a Chris Wallace or a Chris Cuomo or a Brett Baier or whoever. But I do recognize that there's a distinction between somebody that he said in the interview, in that famous Chris Wallace interview, that he wanted to be Mark Twain, not Edward R. Murrow, right? So that's his aspiration, where he wanted his voice heard. He certainly had an opinion, but first and foremost, he was an entertainer and not a journalist. So he didn't like how there was like the whataboutism. So like when Fox would get pissed that he would fact check them, they would, well, what about that time that you didn't include this or you didn't do that? And I do think he was right to point out like, okay, we have two different goals, and you should be held to a higher standard of journalistic ethic. But I don't think that applies now.
Yeah, for sure.
That said, there are calls for him, and have been for a while, for him to run for office. Based on what I mean, obviously, I think he'd be very popular. Would it excite you?
Yeah, I think he should try it. I think that'd be interesting to see for sure.
Gotcha. We already talked about Tulsi Gabbard. I made a note there. Have you watched any of the recent like high-profile debates with like Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance was the other day in Ohio?
No, I haven't done much political shit at all recently.
Gotcha. I was not impressed with Tim Ryan on that one. Tim Ryan usually has like these epic viral moments when he's in Congress, but J.D. Vance did a lot better than I thought he would rhetorically. There were a lot of stumbles, and especially early on with Tim Ryan, J.D. Vance like held his own in that debate a lot better than I expected him to.
Okay.
But then there was one like between Beto O'Rourke and Greg Abbott, which was a couple of weeks before that. That one was pretty good. You should check that out if you haven't.
Gotcha.
What do you think of Biden, his pardons for federal marijuana possession convictions and looking to deschedule it?
Obviously, I super ultra agree. I think it's a good political move. I think it's a good like moral move. Like this is something we should have been over a long time ago.
The commentary about him from like the Majority Report and others are that he probably either personally is agnostic or personally is opposed to it, being this like 80-year-old establishment Democrat, but he sees the writing on the wall for politics, and like you said, it's politically it's a strong move. Obviously, you're not a mind reader, but would you be surprised if Biden is personally disdainful of like marijuana use and would love to see it still?
I have no idea. It wouldn't surprise me personally if he was against it, but I truly don't know.
Gotcha.
He might have a whole different perspective on drugs because his son has drug issues, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
His perspective could be very negative on drugs, or it might be positive on some drugs and really negative on others. So who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There could be a very intense emotional investment. They, speaking of Hunter Biden, they dropped a voicemail. Fox News, I think it was Hannity, dropped a voicemail of President Biden. It was in 2018, so it was before he was elected, and I think it was at like the height of Hunter Biden's relapse. He left him like this really sweet voicemail where he's like, "Hey man, it's Dad. I love you.
Aren't they just drumming this up? Aren't these old things? I thought I'd already read these before off the laptop. Am I crazy?
I don't know if it came. So it wasn't sourced from what I read. Hannity got the voicemail and aired it like 2 days ago.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's all over Twitter where people are like, "This is probably going to have the opposite intended effect," because like you can hear Biden near the point of tears in the voicemail, like his breath hitches. It's a very humanizing moment. Do you think that there's, coming from Nebraska, having like conservative family members, I don't think, as somebody who comes from Kentucky and has conservative family members and friends, I don't think that this will matter much when it comes to, casting your vote, right? So like for the longest time, conservatives and Republicans would say, I want to vote somebody I want to have a beer with. And I think if people were being honest, most people would love to have a beer with Joe Biden. Because he seems like the have a beer kind of guy.
Yeah, he does. He's like pictures in his car and his like the fucking dog he had and shit. Yeah, he seems more personable than Obama did, who feels like you're gonna have a more intense kind of interaction. He seems more like a Bill Clinton kind of person, yeah, or even a George Bush kind of person for sure.
100%. So that was funny too. I mean, because I know Obama had this reputation. You look at it in comment section everywhere about how cool Obama was and how personable Obama was. And I actually never got that impression. Like certainly he could be funny at times. Like he has some really epic clapbacks to Republicans. Like when he mentioned a State of the Union one year, he's like, listen, I've got no more races to run, and Republicans like applauded, and he said, "Yep, because I won both of mine." And then there was like he had seemed like these epic clapback moments, but I never considered Obama the cool president. And as a matter of fact, I think he's like, isn't he kind of pretty geeky? Like he was very studious and he was like this Harvard scholar and whatnot, but he was not
they all go to
known.
like, even Bush, isn't he like a Yale graduate, or is it Harvard?
True,
Like,
but I
they're
think
all
like
from there.
Bush had the reputation for being like this coke abusing partier when he was in school. I think President Bush had substance abuse problems, if I remember correctly. But I agree. Like Biden gives me more of a Bill Clinton vibe, and say what you want about Bill Clinton, but I think he was the most charismatic president in modern times, even more than Obama. But I guess what I mean is like I don't think that these humanizing moments from Biden will still move the needle much in terms of winning over Republican voters. What do you think? Since you come from
No,
also a
probably
Republican
not. I think
background?
that the discourse is super poisoned right now. There's no way. Like people think that Biden is literally like the fucking Sith Lord from Star Wars or whatever. I don't think anything is going to help or change at that point or at this point.
So this close to midterms, like I mean, obviously we're a country of 330 million people. We can't rule out individuals, but in terms of seeing any meaningful percentage point shifts, you'd be pretty surprised if we saw like. But basically, the lines are drawn at this point. Do you think
I don't know if
fair?
the lines are drawn. I'm just saying if they're going to change. I don't think they're going to change in response to like personalizing,
Humanizing
interviews.
moments.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Wait, why you didn't go to TwitchCon? Why not?
Oh, I had a friend coming in from out of state, and we had this pretty big Halloween party here in my new city. So it was fun. It was really nice. But
So that was more.
Yeah,
Wait,
make that.
what the fuck? A Halloween party in the beginning of October?
we couldn't do it this weekend because somebody had. Oh no, we did it last weekend. We couldn't do it this
You're
weekend
just
because I'm going to
making
be out of
shit up
state.
because you didn't want to come.
No. I'm going to be out of
That's
state.
all
I'm going to
good,
be at a
yeah.
cousin's wedding, and then at the end of the month, the person hosting the Halloween party couldn't do it. So
Sure. Okay, dude.
yeah, I didn't go as anything. I'm more of a Halloween agnostic at this point. Like it's fun to, I don't know. Parties are always fun, but like the dressing up thing just doesn't do much for me. Although it could be a slutty nurse, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll have to think
Gotcha.
about that next time. Yeah, maybe I'll go next year though. Couple more questions for you because I'm trying to interrogate you here. Florida, now that you're back, has
Yeah.
Biden got any goodwill from Florida?
Oh, I don't know. I
of-
don't talk to fucking Floridians. I have no idea.
You don't have you don't have like a social life there, like with locals.
It's gonna be all like young people. Also, no. What do you mean? I stream 10 hours a day, and then I gym and email and masturbate and fuck your mom. I don't have time for fucking to go out and talk to
You fuck
locals.
my mom after you masturbate? Like you're refractory period, like you're ready to
Depends.
fire
Sometimes
again
when your
in
mom
10
is
minutes.
real worn out because she's been fucking all the other chatters, she wants it to be nice and quick. In which case, I'll fuck her
No,
and then
she
masturbate
has
afterwards.
discerning taste, dude. No. My mother has discerning taste. She's not just like some strumpet.
Okay,
My
well,
God,
sorry.
she has to have a certain like I don't know, a sub count, right? So like you have to have X number of subs. She's probably fucking Vaush too.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, again, she's a classy dame. Maybe Sam Cedar, Kyle Kalinske, probably not. I don't know. Anyway, enough about my mom fucking people. So you have no idea as far as Florida's concerned, like whether or not. I mean, he granted federal approval relatively quickly. He went down there. He had that press conference with him. You don't know.
I feel like for Florida, haven't the battle lines been drawn? It's DeSantis down here. Like, are Floridians ever changing their mind?
I doubt it personally, but I'm not there.
Well, the next time I go bar hopping, I'll make sure to ask
You
everybody.
should. You should.
Yeah.
That's probably a good way to get like shanked in a bar. Hey, who's here's voting for Biden?
True.
Okay.
Wait, do you have a bunch of
And
friends
on the-
outside of your internet life and your job stuff, or how do you meet people in real life?
The app Meetup. So I recently moved to a new state probably about 3 months ago, and I've been wearing Meetup and Bumble and Hinge and Bumble BFF out, and it's been pretty successful. I highly recommend Meetup. I mean, I don't know what shit you'd run into since you're an e-celebrity, but like people, like you list your interests, you make an account, you list your interests, you put your zip code in and whatnot, and it's like, okay, disc golf here at this park, this pub crawl on this street or whatnot. And it's very constant. And I have had like one solid interaction after another there. So it's been really cool in terms of expanding your social circle. Because I don't think opportunities to meet people. I'm a pretty extroverted guy, but like going up to somebody at a bar to be like, hey man, what are you drinking? Or, hey, whatever, blah, 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 trying to make small talk. People are just like very ill disposed towards it, compared to what it was, I imagine, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So
Gotcha.
you got to use the apps.
Okay.
But if you're not interested in making friends, you might not have any utility for it, right?
Yeah,
You
true.
seem pretty content with where you are.
Yeah. I've got my online friends. That's all I need.
The best kind, man.
Yeah.
That way, you can just like minimize the screen. You can fake like a connection issue.
Yeah.
It happens. You don't have to. There's no investment. They don't know where you live.
No emotional
That's nice.
intimacy, no vulnerability. Just.
I don't know. I think that we're having plenty of emotional intimacy and vulnerability.
Yeah,
I've
Do you follow any of
interrogated you
Do you follow any of the drama going around with any of my friend groups? Any of the Mr. Girl stuff or?
I listened to a Mr. Girl conversation that you had, the Scottish guy. You had a conversation. I think it was about Fuentes. It was you, Mr. Girl, and it was Chud Logic. It was Chud Logic.
Oh, he's Scottish?
Yeah. Chud Logic's Scottish, right? I'm not. Guys, Chad, they're Scottish, aren't they?
I thought he was British, but okay, go ahead.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is British.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
major
anyway,
wrong, super wrong.
Scotland is part of Great Britain, so I'll take it. He's probably English, but
Okay.
no. So I listened to that. He's banned, right, for some reason.
Chud Logic?
Mr. Girl.
Mr. Girl is, yeah. But if you haven't followed any of it, okay. I was just curious if you'd kept up.
Yeah. So like really, to be honest with you, outside of stuff that pertains to like larger political issues, I really don't follow the drama stuff just because I'm not.
That's good.
I'm
That's
not
fine,
that invested in the intricacies of it. Vaush, I'm aware of that just because like you guys were Iron Man and Captain America as far as like online lefty debate partners. You guys were teaming up against Allsup and Stryker. That was kind of my first foray into this online space, and I yearn for those days. I miss those days, and I really think that you should try to make those days happen again. I think it's time to bury the hatchet.
Oh my God, you're that one guy on Reddit. There's a guy on Reddit who has the Reddit account Destiny Vaush Forever, and he posts on both of our subreddits.
Yes. It's a bunch of artwork. Like you should see my Tumblr. It's beautiful.
Gotcha.
There's like a lot of erotica though, so be warned.
Gotcha. Me and Vaush.
But yes, of you and Vaush, the best kind of erotica.
Okay.
Vaush-dany.
That's fair. Okay.
Dosh. But no, so like other than that, I really don't follow it all that much. The Keffals stuff, obviously, because she has become outside of, like she's getting like mainstream publications and stuff like that, and obviously the
Not much anymore.
taking
Don't
down
worry.
of Kiwi Farms.
But-
I don't know. The only other political thing I wanted to bring to your attention is just a reminder that because again, you're such a devout and strident institutionalist. Midterms are approaching. You love the institutions of the United States. The majority of GOP nominees in this election cycle, like out of 299, it's like 180, 170, are stated election deniers.
That's pretty crazy.
And
does a stated election denier mean you totally think it's fake, or that you just think there should have been more checks? So what does that mean, actually, on that? I'm curious.
From the WAPO article that I read, the citations were, the consensus was that they don't think that Joe Biden was fairly elected.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
that there was malarkey going on in the 2020 election, which I understand that there again is a stratification there. So that's better than saying that the whole thing, that's better than the like Mike Lindell pillow guy.
a
who
little
thinks
bit
that
better,
all
but
the-
not much. It's still pretty fucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially as much as this has been litigated by election experts and
Yeah.
whatnot, it's worlds apart. That's terrifying, man. And not just congressional races, not just senatorial. Actually, I don't think. Are there any Senate races? Oh yeah, Tim Ryan and JD Vance are running for the competing for the Ohio Senate seat. So it's representative seats, senatorial seats, gubernatorial races, secretaries of state. Dude, there's no telling what the 2024 election might look like. It's This shit is really, really scary. And I know I say that every time, but it's like then this other stat will come out and yeah, out of 199 GOP, or 299 GOP nominees, 174 of them are election deniers. It's like I don't know how we back off from that. I really don't, and I don't. It's really scary. I don't want to say this could be the end of the American experiment, but
feels like that sometimes. I know what you mean.
Well, anyway. All right, dude. Well, listen, I interrogated you long enough, and I appreciate it. But I had this long list of shit I wanted to pick your brain about, and yeah, it's nice chat with you, man.
All right. Well, hey, I love you. Be careful, buddy. Okay.
I love you too, buddy. You have a good night.
See you
Bye,
later,
chat.
Wait.
What?
Plug your stuff.
Oh, you guys can find me at Ruminate, RUM1N8. I am active on TikTok and YouTube. I don't do Twitch anymore. And I don't think there are any other major platforms or what. I just don't like to stream. So it's small video essays and YouTube shorts, TikTok shorts, and TikTok live debates, and annoying Destiny about various shit. So follow me. Appreciate it.
Cool. Love you. Okay. Be
Thanks,
careful,
guys.
Bye.
Bye.